Yo, finally NBA is figuring stuff out. Hey, what's good, and welcome back to Starting on the Bench. It's a place where normal people can talk about the sports they love. I was reading this article recently about different sports and their time of coming back, and some of them are canceled or postponed or rescheduled, and I know that basketball is finally thinking it through and making sure that the sports are here. I know football are planning on coming back September 10th. So there's no change to that. XFL has been canceled. If you've been following the podcast, you know that XFL has been sold out or trying to be sold to somebody else. Private companies are trying to buy out, and the main guy who owns the WWE, he's like, I don't want it anymore. There's a bunch of lawsuits going on. Some companies are losing $500 million. So that's that's interesting. Like, what's going on in XFL? But some of you know that it's finally canceled. It was open in 2001. It didn't work out, and they decided to try it out into 2020. Unfortunately, the Rona situation happened, and then we're not able to hear from them ever again. So thankfully, some of the private companies believe so much in it that they want to buy it out, but only after the lawsuits and stuff like that. Baseball is still figuring out. MLB are most likely not going to be back until like mid or end July. It says that it's postponed, but I know that they're trying to figure out how many games, regular season games they want to play, and then the playoffs, and then the World Series. So usually they're done with their season by like November or something like that. But, they're trying to figure out if they're going to be playing 52 games, regular season games, and then or 82 or 112. I don't know. They're still trying to figure out how things are going to be like. But players are really want to come back, and then they know that they still want to have the 2020 championship, the World Series. So it's going to be interesting. Hockey is still trying to figure out as well. I'm a huge fan of hockey. Tampa Bay Lightning was good. What? So it's going to be interesting. They're still trying to figure out how to make it healthy. So they're not rushing into things. I know that they're losing money, but money is not really a motivating factor for them to come back. Even though money is important, but they know that health is more important than money. So soccer, some of it, MLS, they're still they want to be postponed, but at the same time they want to reschedule. So they don't want to risk anything, but at the same time, some new teams are coming to the league, such as Inter Miami, which is owned by none other David Beckham. So it's going to be fun seeing his team play, who's going to be on the roster. I think we already know who's in the roster, but how they're going to be playing together against the rest of the team. So Champions League have been postponed again, so we'll be staying tuned for that. Euro 2020 moved to 2021. Bundesliga and finally open, so some of the games you can tune in to. I think ESPN is also covering that, ESPN Plus and stuff like that. So combat sports, MMA, they're planning their 251 card already in July 10th or 11th. I need to look it up. They had 250 last week, June 6th, and it went amazing. Nobody was expecting the O'Malley knockout, so it was a lot of fun. The Nunez, she did amazing. I mean, it was beautiful to watch. I don't know, if you like combat sports, I love boxing. I'm really getting into UFC, the MMA scene, so it's been a lot of fun. Especially with, like, for instance, boxing. I know that some of you I've talked about. You can follow us on Instagram. We definitely talked about it on our stories. Apparently, Fury and Anthony Joshua have agreed to 2-fight contract, which means that they're negotiating the purse, so the money, how much everybody's gonna get, both sides. So Eddie Hearn, he posted on Instagram that it's actually happening. I know on Twitter, somebody, I think Sky Sports, they had an interview with him, and he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So they're still having conversations about it, because it takes a while. The reason why it takes a while is because Fury and Wilder third fight is going to be happening in October. Yeah. So if for those who don't know, I'm just going to catch you up to speed, right? So Tyson and Fury and Wilder, they had their first fight in 2018, and it was a tie, and everybody's like, it was rigged and blah blah blah, so whatever, right? So but everybody thought that the Wilder's gonna win, But then on the 12th round, Fury all of a sudden he gets I can't remember if they called it knockout, but he gets on the floor. He stays there for 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden he gets up as if nothing happened. And then Fury was so, I wouldn't say he was out of shape. It just, his cardio wasn't up to the way it's supposed to be, right? Because Wilder's like, his cardio and his precision with hands is amazing. Fury he's a gypsy king. That's why, that's his nickname. So the way he handles himself in the ring is amazing. So the way it's amazing because he knows how much force he needs to plant, how much he needs to walk, and his hands and all that. It's not that fast, but I think his precision with knowing how much force to place in the punch is definitely. I mean, he knows his 12 rounds. So now they had a second fight in February of 2020. And then Fury won because everybody's like, man, he got fat. He's not ready. He's not doing his cardio well. And so many people were betting on Wilder because everybody's like, yeah, Wilder's gonna win. Like, no doubt. And then all of a sudden, Fury wins and gets the belt. And and then everybody's like, yep, all right, that's done. And then right after in March, everybody's like at the end of, because they had a fight at the end of 22nd of February 2020, right? and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, what about the third fight? Because Wilder's like, man, come on, I need a third fight because Wilder was his excuse was my suit that I had, my outfit, whatever, like the ring walk. It was 40 pounds, so my legs weren't ready. So my legs, man, the way he fell on the ground was so fast. Oh my goodness. Formula One has nothing on him, man. So all of a sudden he's like, oh, we definitely need to have a third fight. And Fury's like, I won fair and square. Like, you had the first chance to beat me in the first, in the first fight in 2018. It didn't work out. It was a tie, and all of a sudden I won. And then not all of a sudden they trained, but like, you lost, and now you want to have a third fight. Apparently they will have a third fight in October. So in early October. So the date isn't set yet, unfortunately, but we still have time. They still have time to promote and all that. So stay tuned for more information on it. Follow us on Instagram if you want to have like a day-to-day recent information and stuff like that. So tennis is coming back as well. I know the U.S. Open is going to be at the end of August and September. I like tennis. I used to play tennis. But then I didn't. I'm terrible at it. That's why. But I enjoy watching it, so it's a lot of fun. Wimbledon has been canceled, unfortunately, so it's all right. Golf, PGA has been rescheduled. The U.S. Open and then FedEx Cup has been rescheduled for mid-August and then mid-September. I know that the Masters have been rescheduled to November, so it's a lot of fun. Here's the thing with golf. I propose a petition. I don't know, wherever I need to sign. Type in my email, whatever the social security number they're asking for. But I so want to have the players be mic'd up. So from the exhibition game that I watched between Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, I really want it to be all together. Like, I want them to be mic'd up. I want to hear their thoughts as they go from a hole to a hole, and it's going to be fun, because that's the thing. The only thing you hear is the commentators, and they're always whispering. But I really want them to be like, are they mad? Without even looking at them, are they mad? Are they excited? Was it a good one? Why are they clapping and all of that? So golf is something that I enjoy watching. I played a little bit, but it's something that I want to watch. Australian Football League is back, so I'm excited. My best friend and I, we started following the teams in the league, so it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're interested in, you can follow some of the podcasts a little bit earlier. We talked about it, and we're going to talk about it in future. If you know, I'm a huge running fan. I hate running, but I enjoy running because it gets me in shape. Boston Marathon has been canceled due to, of course, Corona, but at the same time, Boston is such a tiny place where they're not able to facilitate all the needs that NBA is going to have in Florida. So speaking of, for instance, just to draw you a parallel, so Boston Marathon, they obviously have tiny streets, they have places to run, and Boston Marathon is so famous, as well as New York Marathon and then Honolulu Marathon. But if they did it in Florida, then probably it would have been much better. However, they're not doing it in Florida, so it's canceled. We'll see in 2021. So The thing is, if whenever you do Boston Marathon, you probably pay up to $1,000. If you didn't know that, that's crazy. Yeah, because I looked it up. That's right. So you pay $1,000 to participate in it. If you don't, because it's like 850 something. Like I'll round it to $1,000. Plus, you pay like $200 for insurance. A lot of them put money for that insurance, and some of them don't. So, for those who wanted to run a Boston Marathon, they're still gonna be running next year. So, I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to see who's gonna be the winner of it. And if you know that this is kind of like a sidetracked point, they're planning on banning. This is a rumor, so I want to start by saying this. This is a rumor, but I've heard it from good sources that it might happen. They're banning Nike's recent shoes, Hyperflex, I think that's what it's called, because it has carbon fiber sheet and they have extra foam, which allows runners to exceed their time by 4%, to be better by 4%. And if you know, the person who broke the last marathon, he was wearing them. So we'll see who's wearing what shoes in Boston Marathon. Now, with that being said, I wanna talk about NBA and their comebacks and all that. I'm gonna pull out an ESPN article because they definitely put a thought into it because it's a huge article. So I'm just gonna give you bits and pieces of what exactly they're talking about because I'm curious about how many teams are gonna be participating in it. Is it gonna be 16 teams or 22 teams? Who's gonna be participating in it? How they're gonna be doing it? Because we obviously have personal facilities, teams practicing. What about quarantining and how? What's the time spent? So, from the article of ESPN, I just want to kind of before I start reading up, I just want you to know that they're still trying to figure out if it's going to be a 22 or 16 team. I personally vote for 16 because, again, for 22 teams, it's going to take just more and more time, which we don't have in 2020. So they're planning on doing, I would say 16 teams. They're going to start in July 31st. All of the teams are able to come back to their facility in June 30th, start practicing, and somewhere in the middle for a couple of weeks, somewhere in the middle of July, they're going to be flying to Florida to quarantine for 14 days. So, for 2-week quarantine while quarantining. So that's a standard procedure in Florida. So it's going to be, obviously, I'm curious to see what kind of corona testing they're going to have on hands. I know the UFC has presented that you can have a private clinics develop the testing much faster, and it's going to be up to 5 minutes or something like that. You'll be able to know if you have or no or don't. So obviously it's going to require more money, but if people are going to be buying NBA a whole pass or something like that, it's going to be fine. So the 16 teams in playoff position plus those within 6 games of each number 8 seed allows teams to ramp up with regular season games before the playoff. So that's according to in total of 22 teams or something like that. The league used the historical context of late season playoff rounds as a guide for how many teams to include. That said, it was a largely invented metric, which means that they're still trying to figure out maybe we should give an option for other teams who didn't play or who didn't have a chance to play better in the earlier season. So for Eastern Conference, we have number 1 Milwaukee Bucks, number 2 Raptors, 3rd position Celtics, 4th Heat, 5th Pacers, 6th 76ers, 7th Brooklyn Nets, which I'm excited about. I really want to see them play. And then 8th Orlando Magic. With Western Conference, we have Los Angeles Lakers, LA Clippers. Number 3, we have Nuggets. 4, Utah Jazz. Number 5, Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder. 6, Houston Rockets. 7, we have Dallas Mavericks. And 8, Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, so I'm excited to see them. Here's the difference between the 8th and 9th place seed in the Eastern between Magic and Wizards, because they're in number 9. Orlando Magic, they have 30-35 right now, and Washington Wizards, they have 24-40. So it would be challenging for them to have that. That's a huge gap, so there's no point. I don't see a point of having 22 teams. Same thing with Western between Grizzlies and Blazers. Grizzlies, they have 32-33. And then Blazers have 29-37. Now, there is a chance maybe in the Western to fill that void to bridge that gap. But at the same time, it's just going to be a waste of time. And I think that this is a very selfish in my opinion, so who cares, right? But I think that just leave it at 16. That's if you have 16 teams playing finals, and then the playoffs, and then the finals, then it's probably going to take what ESPN says is going to take no more than 74 days for everything to complete, and then they're going to be done by early October, beginning of October. So the primary reason is money. If the remaining 259 regular season games had been canceled, the players were facing $645 million in lost salary. Adding 88 games back into the schedule reduces the collective salary loss by $300 million. Right now, player paychecks are being withheld by 25%. In all remaining regular season games were canceled, the reduction could have gone to around 40% through November. I think that it's definitely driven by money because they don't want to lose a lot of money. If they didn't have a playoff, I was reading this statistic, if they didn't have a playoff in the finals, they are on the verge of losing $900 million from just like streams and contracts and different sponsorships and all of that. So what will the schedule look like? So the regular season will extend to 16 games with 5 to 6 games per day. The NBA has branded these seeding games, quote unquote, and it is likely there will be weekly afternoon playoff games during the first round. Sources say the league will use 3 different facilities at first to stage games, the arenas and all of that, and it will be reduced to 2 sites than 1. There will be 4 hours between games on each individual court to accommodate overtimes, cleanings, and warm-ups. So that's something that I'm excited about. This is something that wise, cautious. If I do so say myself, allow more jobs for cleaning, making sure the arenas are ready and all that, because some people are going to be, accommodating, first of all, to the teams who are going to be playing. Second of all, it's going to be accommodating some of the jobs in Florida, and as you know, Florida needs it right now. Will there be a back-to-backs? In the 8-game regular season format, each team is expected to play 1 back-to-back. The NBA Finals format is expected to include games every other day. So it's going to be very intense and grueling on the players, but it's going to be paying for everything is going to be provided for them, so they don't have to stress about physical therapy. They don't have to stress there's not going to be a lot of stress on their muscles. This especially, it's going to be good for their sponsorships and contracts, so money's going to be in, and for the fans to enjoy the games, because I feel like the world needs NBA to be back. I know that UFC has done a tremendous job paving the way for all of the sports to be back. So I think the NBA is going to be back once the NFL is going to be back in September. And for me personally, I'm excited to watch boxing. I don't know how they're going to accommodate fans because, again, once you walk into the arena as a boxer and any kind of sport, not just boxing, you hear the crowd cheering, and it's just so enjoyable. So they did talk about NBA having that 2K crowd audio or something like that, which is kind of stupid, but I don't know, it's going to be interesting. It's just to facilitate the noise. That's all that I think that's there right now. I think that we'll know more in the next couple of weeks as they will progress and facilities are going to be open for the players to be a part of it. Silver stated on TNT Inside the NBA Thursday night that it is possible that, quote unquote, certain coaches may not be able to be back on the bench. Be able to be on the bench whenever the play resumes in order to protect them, because some of them are in age and all of that. So it continues saying that it's entirely possible that an NBA coach in his 60s or 70s could be healthier than some in their 30s and 40s. You know who you are. Adam assured that we would work through this together to help determine what is both safe and fair for all of our coaches. So if the players do not want to play, then they will be substituted by bench players. What up? If coaches are not, if they're not safe to be on the bench and coach, then they're gonna figure out how they can substitute a way to do it. So, and I think the NBA, even though they're doing by money, I think they're trying to be as safe as possible, and that's why they want to give everybody a fair chance to participate and get the 2020 championship. I do not want to have that asterisk next to 2020 champion because everybody deserves it. Everybody deserves it. So it's gonna be very interesting from a management perspective, sponsorships perspective, and from just for future. So stay tuned. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and especially follow us on Instagram. We'll be finally showing different clips from the podcast, as well as just having a conversation of what do you think about that? What do you think about recent news and on stories? So thanks for tuning in. Stay healthy and safe, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.